Hello, everyone, and welcome to another great episode of the Jason Howell Company Stakeholder Speaker Series. If you give me a second, I'm going to go ahead and let a bunch of folks in who've been waiting. And so here we go. Admit all. And once again, welcome everyone to the Jason Howell Company Stakeholder Speaker Series. We've got a great show today because we don't just have one guest, we have two guests today to talk about making impactful giving much easier. We've got Kate Williams from 1% for the Planet, and we've got Steve Gruber from, Bluestone Life, as it were. I'm hearing these dings and they're quite distracting, so I'll bring a couple more people in here. Before we get into all the easy ways to do impactful giving, let's just meet Kate and Steve. Kate, say hello and please tell us how's your day been so far.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Kate Williams. I'm in my office in Burlington, Vermont. And right before we got on the call with you, we were talking about snow, which is something we do here, especially when we finally get it after waiting for a long time. So I got to spend yesterday welcoming the first snowstorm of the year, which was lovely. And for me, that's important. I like to spend as much time as I can outside in addition to doing this job that I love so much.
Well, it's terrific. So far, it's been a pretty good day.
Very much so.
Fantastic. And Steve, has it been snowy where you are?
Yep. Right now I'm in the same office building that Kate is. We're office neighbors, and
Okay.
My commute in this morning was a bit snowy as they were getting it plowed off the road. And similar nice snow day yesterday. I said everybody in my family happens to be reading good books right now, so we just had a quiet day, curled up on couches in front of fireplace reading yesterday, and it was very nice and kind of a nice way to get the week started.
All right, so we've eased into this abridged week here, and we're going to have a great conversation today about impactful giving. What's so great about this particular Zoominar, as I like to call him, is we have the person who's representing a firm about how to give and how to make things easier, and yet we have also Steve representing a firm that's actually implemented some of that vision. And so it's the both sides of the coin, which makes it really, I hope, interesting and very, easy for a transition to say, how can I get involved? And so I'm looking forward to this conversation. Well, to get things started, I think we have most folks coming in already. Many fewer distractions for me kind of ongoing with the dinging that happens in the background. So let me go ahead and share my screen and we'll go ahead and get started. If you came to 1% for the Planet, impactful giving made easy, you came to the right Zoominar. And Kate and Steve, I just have to thank you for taking some time to share some of what you know, some of what you do with the audience that we have here today and the audience that will be watching this in the future. I'm a big admirer of what you're both doing and looking forward to the conversation today. But before we get to the Q&A, let's go for a word from our sponsor. Jason Howell Company is a family wealth management firm I started about 6 years ago. A few years after that, my business partner Doug joined. And I'd say that our goal is to make people feel good about their money. Now, we do this through a few different ways. Of course, we have a sustainable investing structure, which helps a lot. We also have a unique family governance piece to our planning. Really, no other firm does it the way we do. And the last thing I can say is we have a proactive philanthropy focus. It's why we host Zoominars like these with Kate and Steve. There's a lot more I could tell you about our firm, but now isn't the time. If you would like more information or to get in touch with us, just go to jasonhowell.com. So enough about our firm. Let's get into our guests. All right, so first we have Kate Williams. Now, if you registered for this event, then you saw her bio once before, but if you didn't, here it is. Kate, I'm just interested in the last two lines and how that relates to the rest of your bio. You are an Ivy League graduate. You could have done anything in the whole wide world, yet you're doing this. Tell us why.
Well, for me, it just feels like the most important thing I could be doing. And when I was 18, I had an experience in the mountains that kind of really brought it home for me that this, which I put in air quotes, because I at the time didn't know exactly what this was. It was some combination of like being a leader, dealing with, hard things successfully, being given responsibility, and like being completely in love with the beauty of the wilderness. Like that was the package of this that I, really committed to, and just felt like, that's what I needed to devote my career to. And my parents were both, very much, their careers were focused on, doing good for other people. So I think I grew up, it wasn't even sort of drilled into me. It was just what I was surrounded with, that if you are given the gift of good education, and I do see it as a total gift that I was able to have the education I was able to have, and the parents and family, that you give back. I mean, that was just kind of part of what I was, the water I drank growing up. So that all kind of informed, and I feel like I can't imagine a better way to be giving back than 1% for the planet. So I feel really fortunate that I've gotten to land here.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that. We're going to get into what exactly is 1% for the planet. What is the 1% in a little bit? But I'd love to see a little bit more, or hear a little bit more about some of the other organizations you're a part of, like Shelburne Farms and the National Outdoor Leadership School. I had never heard of either of those before.
Yeah. And it's interesting because both represent kind of different ways in which my kind of volunteer board participation has, been really additive for me. So Shelburne Farms is a board that I'm on right now. And the reason I love that so much is, it's a completely gorgeous place. I mean, it's just a really powerful place in and of itself, but it's also very local and very much sort of grounded in a place. And my current job at 1% for the planet is very kind of systems and global oriented. And so it's been really rewarding to be on a board that, is very much based in Vermont. And I can sort of put my feet on the ground there and sort of be part of that endeavor. NOLS, National Outdoor Leadership School, was really the first board that I was on. And it was the school through which I had that sort of powerful experience at age 18. And so, for me to then, as I, grew up, to get to serve on the board was a really great opportunity for me to kind of understand something that was so important to me from a different angle, and really kind of, cut my teeth on the role of a board and of strategy. And then I would say a connector between the two is that they both have a strong focus on outdoor education. And for me, that's something I really believe in, whether it's formal or just spending time with a tree that's on the sidewalk outside your house, but forming a connection to an outside natural place or entity, I think, is how so many of us kind of forge the connections and affections that are then, then fuel our passion to understand why climate change matters, or, understand why some of these bigger issues that we may hear about are connected to us. So staying connected to outdoor education in its different forms is really important to me.
I'll remember that line, spending time with a tree, even if it's just in your neighborhood. And, unlike some bios, you have it pretty clear here that you mentioned you're a mother. You're a dog walker, probably a dog lover as well. Tell us why it's important that, people share that side of themselves. I think we're seeing more of that during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm. I guess it just feels like that is so much of my identity is shaped by those other pieces. And I've always, the joke in my family is that I have no poker face. So I think in a way, this is what you see when you meet me anyway. So I feel like making it apparent, and it informs how I lead, and informs how I do 1% for the planet. So it's not like there are two parts of me. It's like there's this one self that, went to graduate school, but also is a mom. And neither one of those trumps the other in terms of, how it informs the way in which I lead. I mean, actually being a mom kind of trumps everything, honestly, but
right.
But, they all are sort of part of the overall identity. I also find like connecting with other people in authentic ways is really important to me. And, a lot of times it's about trail running. When I meet someone on LinkedIn, they're like, oh, I see you're a trail runner. And then we have a great connection, and then that leads to other things. So I appreciate those opportunities to kind of find, find points of traction with other people that might be different than what we would expect if we just focus on our titles.
Thanks, Kate. I feel like we're getting to know you, which is so important, I think, as we have this conversation. Well, let's learn a little bit about Steve as well. You probably know him well, Kate, because you share a building with him, not quite an office, but a building. But Steve, a couple of things pop out at me as a financial advisor. You're an economics guy, you're an equity trader. And so it's a big transition in my mind, going from, sort of a pure finance career to joining Bluestone Life, which is a life insurance company, but it seems like it's so much more than that. Tell us a little bit about you. Tell us a little bit about Bluestone Life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I never really thought about it in the way Kate was explaining it, but thinking back to what she said with how her parents taught to kind of, if you had the gift of education to give back. And in my upbringing, it was very much you work at a career and then you're also involved in the community. So my parents did a lot of volunteering and a lot of give back in the community, but the job was something separate. And so I think a lot of my early career, especially, I would go to the trading desk and have one face on, and then at the end of the day, I would leave and I would go and volunteer somewhere. And I was kind of the liberal on the trading desk that everybody always said, oh, that guy does yoga and he's doing all these different things. And I think at some point, to me, it wasn't a big jump at all. I really wanted more the values and my life mission of giving back to line up with my career. And I found that in Bluestone. I didn't think I was necessarily going to find that in financial services at all. And so when I found it through a life insurance company, I was pretty excited. And so being able to use investment financial services background and matching it up with Bluestone, which is all about mission alignment, was a perfect fit for me. And yeah, tiny bit about Bluestone. Bluestone was really founded because we believe that you cannot protect your family if you're not also protecting your community and planet. And that really is a literal belief. We're selling a life insurance product, so this is good for 20, 30 years. And if you're gonna have a life insurance policy in 30 years, but your community is a mess and the planet's on fire, what good is a check going to do for you? Not much good. And so we really believe that those things have to go together. And that comes to life through our premiums with purpose. And so with the Bluestone life insurance policies, we give back 1% of our revenues as part of a 1% for the planet member, which we'll get into that more, I know. Then we give an additional 1% of the death benefit of the policy to policyholders to name to a nonprofit that they care about. So if you get a $1 million policy, it's an extra $10,000 to name to a nonprofit, and then the premiums are invested responsibly. And so that's really how we bring our mission kind of to the customer. And we have found again and again, our customers are people that care about these things deeply. We call them practical activists. They're people that are both practical and activists. Both those things are an important part of who our customer base is.
Wow. And you mentioned mission a couple of times in how you described your company. Can you tell us a little bit about Certified B Corp, what that is and how you folks apply it?
Yeah, absolutely. So as a certified B Corp, they talk about the 3 Ps of people, profit, and planet. So it's more than simply going after profit as your only goal as a business. You actually can take into account all the stakeholders, not just the shareholders. And so as a certified B Corp, we take into account all of those aspects of the business. And it's kind of a business doing, it's their tagline, but it's business as a force for good. So we truly believe that businesses aren't bad in themselves. They're all around us, they're necessary, and you can do some awfully good things with them as well.
Oh, terrific. Thank you for sharing that. I know that there are B corporations out there. They don't always make it as prominent as Bluestone Life, and in really incorporating it into your entire revenue stream. So thank you for sharing a little bit about that and a little bit about the dog, the cat, the fish, the hive of bees. It looks like you were kind of tailor-made for this.
Yeah, I mean, we have an active household. our fish just had babies. We had no idea this was possible, but there it was. There was a couple of new little fish in the tank one day.
Oh my
And,
gosh.
so we're desperately trying to protect our new little fish. It's definitely a challenge.
I know you're up for it. That's for sure. All right. Well, let's get into some of the Q&A here and get into what this idea is about 1% for the planet. And I aptly titled this 1% of income Q&A because I do believe that it's what we're talking about. But Kate, you're the CEO of the organization. Can you share with us the big idea behind 1% for the planet?
Yeah, so Steve kind of teed it up because really the big idea is that, not only can business be a force for good, but it kind of has to be, and that there's some really structured and attainable ways that it can be. And 1% for the planet is one of those ways. It's not the only way. But basically the idea is that every business can expand the scope of their impact annually, and in our view, really should. There's no reason not to, by allocating 1% of their revenues to environmental nonprofits. And I very deliberately say expand the scope of their impact because it's more than just, and I don't want to say just, it's more than the investments that companies can and should be making in their, operations and supply chain and other ways in which they can sort of shift to more positive impact through their business. Nonprofits can operate where there is no market. They can operate in ways that are beyond the scope or in a different scope than businesses. So by allocating resources to nonprofits, in addition to making other changes, businesses have this great opportunity to really expand the way in which they can leverage their resources to drive change and drive positive impact for the planet. Our founder, Yvon Chouinard of Patagonia, the way he thought about it and talked about it, and that really informs who we are today, even as we have evolved, is that essentially 1% for the planet is paying rent to the planet. And as business owners, as just people, we're all pretty comfortable with the idea. I mean, maybe we feel like rent is too high sometimes, but we all kind of get that if you want to live somewhere, you have to pay some rent for it. And so our belief is that every business should have just this concept that you pay your employees, you pay your rent, you pay the planet for the inevitable impact that you have, no matter how careful and thoughtful you are. And thankfully, so many more businesses are changing their practices. But through giving to nonprofits, you really are going that extra step, which we hope will become increasingly just again, check the box. You pay your staff, you pay your rent, you pay the planet. That's what 1% for the planet is. Okay.
And I know we're going to get into this in the third question I have in there, but I'd love to touch on, just so it's really clear, this is individuals, corporations, nonprofits, organizations that commit to essentially giving 1% of their revenue / income for resources or for opportunities for the planet, I guess. Is that right?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay, terrific. Well, Steve, your firm is participating in this already. You mentioned that. Tell us what attracted Bluestone Life. I know you're not the founder, but you were attracted to it because they were doing these things. What do you think went behind the idea of, let's go ahead and do this. Let's give 1% to the planet through 1%fortheplanet.org.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, and Bluestone was founded as a 1% for the planet member right out of the gates. It's not something that got tacked on later. It's exactly what Kate said, that the nonprofits really play a critical role. There are things that businesses can't really do and governments aren't doing. There's more that everybody could do, but so nonprofits fit this kind of unique spot, and it is perfect for a nonprofit. They're not going to make a profit on it, but it's critical work. And like the founder, as opposed to kind of a rent, we talk a lot about externalities, that if things actually cost what they truly cost to produce, things would cost more and it would be different. And so this 1% giving is kind of a way to try to incorporate some of those costs that aren't necessarily in the marketplace. A real quick example of like externalities would be a fast food cheeseburger that maybe should be $20-25 if you took into account the deforestation and that it causes obesity and all these things that go into products that aren't accounted for. And so we feel, again, like Kate mentioned, businesses have to do it, and it really feels like, since these things aren't built into prices, businesses really need to give additional back to take care of these externalities that aren't being included in the price structure as we know it. And it's a great organization. I mean, honestly, from Jason, you and I have talked about it, is that a lot of companies do give money, and 1% is a nice way to let people know about it, and people can pretty quickly grasp, 1% of your revenue, like that makes sense, as opposed to just saying, we give some money to nonprofits, and people think, okay, that's handy, but it doesn't
Handy.
mean a whole lot. It's not really a visual thing, but that 1% that you can put up as a tile on your website or on your store really quickly lets people know what you're all about and that you're giving back.
And you mentioned something interesting, Steve. You said that this company, Bluestone Life, it was founded as a 1% for the planet kind of company. So your founder had this in mind, which is not like most founders of insurance companies. That's not kind of what they're thinking. Can you just tell us a little bit about that, and maybe a little bit about the founder's mindset, why he, I believe it was a he, was interested in starting the firm this way?
Yeah, absolutely. So I won't speak for Nathan Irons, our founder, but I certainly have heard his story a number of times. And actually, the business he was in before was a 1% for the Planet member as well. And so he was looking to really make impact in the world, especially after his daughter was born. And he looked around and thought about many different things, not necessarily financial services at all, but how could he make a big impact? And he pretty quickly, or maybe not quickly, but he found that life insurance was something that he thought people really needed. I mean, it was a product he believed in, and he didn't see a decent offering. And he realized the leverage of the insurance industry. And a lot of people don't really, they still, even after we chat and introduce ourselves, okay, well, why life insurance? Why would that be a thing? And we've talked about, and this is even broader insurance than life insurance, but like property and casualty insurance. If a new fossil fuel project isn't insured, it doesn't get financed, and it doesn't happen. So insurance is a great place to start. The insurance industry globally manages over $30 trillion. Trillion with a T, that's not a mispronunciation. That's a huge load of money to invest in things that could be going to great projects. And it's a long-term mindset. I mean, these are insurance companies, so they're insuring for, like I said before, 20 years, 30 years down the road. So they're kind of the perfect investor to say, okay, we need to look far, far ahead. And the fact that no one else out there seemed to be doing it this way. And so it was really founded, it was more founded as a way to protect families, communities, and planets. And then it was a life insurance company. It wasn't founded as a life insurance company and then said, how can we make this a good life insurance company?
Wow. Thank you for that, Steve. $30 trillion industry that your founder, Nathan, is trying to disrupt and that you're a big part of. Thank you for sharing that. We've got a question in the chat, and I should have mentioned this at the top. Whenever there's a question in the chat, I much prefer to jump to that than to the pre-planned questions that we have. And so, Kate, we're going to start with you on this, but it is to Kate and Steve. And this is coming from Lynn. Lynn, thank you for sending this question in. I've just signed up for 1% and working towards B Corp, and I'm so excited to get giving. What advice would you give me as a small UK business owner who is overwhelmed by all the options to give? How can I make the most meaningful impact? Lynn at AG Comms.
Awesome. And Lynn, thank you so much for a great question and for being a member and for really putting your finger on what is a challenge for a lot of people when they consider giving. I mean, I think sometimes the first cut of our thinking is if I had more money to give, that would be so great. I could easily make the choices. as soon as you drop down to the next cut, you realize like, actually, it's kind of hard to figure out like, what would I want to give to? And climate's kind of big and overwhelming. And so you're definitely not alone. And, that is one of the things that our staff really focuses on is how can we help people to figure out what's the best giving strategy for them. We don't believe that there's an absolute best, most important thing to give to. We believe that, it's really important to find what aligns with your values, what you care about. So what I would say to you is a couple of things. One, talk to your account manager, because they're a really great resource for, how to think about it. And so just know that they're always there for you. But in terms of like, just how do you kind of get the process started in your own head and heart is, I mentioned that for me, like being out in the wilderness, having a really meaningful experience for me connected me to something that I love. And that has fueled me for 30 plus years now. So it's really the power of, identifying and connecting to what you love is, that's often the sort of fuel source for many of us in what we choose to give to, what we choose to invest in, how we choose to allocate our time. I know from a business standpoint that it sometimes needs to kind of take in more people than, just you. And you want to think about like, how does this help tell our brand story? How does this align as a business? So, I don't know enough about your sort of business operations or employees or things like that. But, if you kind of start kind of looking at yourself, but then bring your employees into the conversation in whatever ways, and certainly take into consideration, your brand and the story you want to communicate about your company to your consumers, that can also then help refine your giving choices. And once you've sort of gone through that, you may still say, yeah, but then how do I find the nonprofits that deliver on that? And that's where I'd have to say, the 1% for the Planet directory and your account manager are really great resources, because they can say, great, that's your sort of matrix of values and priorities, and we can match that to the nonprofits in our network.
Thanks for answering that, Kate. Steve, did you have any additional sort of on the ground comments as a firm that's already doing their stuff?
Yeah, I think Kate covered a lot of points for how to find them. So I'll just put one point of after you found them, make sure to reach out. I mean, it's been so rewarding and wonderful to, you write a check and you send it on the mail and then you get a thank you letter, and that's great. But I mean, nonprofit, they love it to connect with you. So pick up the phone or schedule a Zoom call and say, hey, can you tell me, I just, want to support you. And I saw what you have posted online. It looks great, but can you tell me more about why you got into this or what's happening? And it really makes it more meaningful. And I think it's an important part of it. And then you can really get involved in that organization. And maybe you find out that maybe in addition to a check, they need some other service that you could provide. And so it's really been fun to really get close to a lot of the nonprofits we support.
Great reason, as Kate said, to make sure you're following your passion and what you love. And Kate, I'll ask you this question because I do think it connects to Lynn's question. And perhaps to people who are still fumbling with exactly how does this work. And the question, you can see it there, how do you bring dollars and doers together? And so just as a caveat, I know on your website, for an example, you have some nonprofit firms that you set up as I think you call it a portfolio, if you wanted to just point your 1% to those nonprofits. So maybe talk about how there's a consultative portion of 1% for the planet, where at that second cut, when you say, oh, I've got all this money, I'd like to give it somewhere, but I don't know how, I'm going to go to 1% and they're going to help.
Yeah, it's a great question. And one thing I do want to just like asterisk is, much as we love this dollars and doers phrase, we are starting to phase it out because we have become more international than US. We're actually have tipped to more than 50% outside of the US. And so we're shifting away from dollars, haven't found the equivalent, but
dollars in parentheses, right?
Exactly. Currency of your choice. But regardless, the way that we do that, and I appreciate the question because it is really important. And, again, with Lynn, when I say like talk to your account manager, that's not just like a punt. It's really sort of pointing to an important resource, which is the work that we call partnership advising. And and the reason we call it partnership advising, one is building on what Steve was saying. We really, really believe in the value of the partnership. So the way 1% for the Planet works is the money does not all come to us. We're not a foundation. It doesn't come to us to be given out. Members give directly to the nonprofits that they end up selecting. So there is, and one of the big reasons for that is it creates the opportunity for the partnership or the relationship to be there. And we have a relationship as well with each member, but that direct relationship or partnership is really important. So the work that we do as advisors is really to help each member on the member side to understand and sort of click through a bunch of questions along the lines of what I was sharing with Lynn in terms of, what you value, what you care about, what's the brand story that you're kind of working on and trying to communicate. Are there business problems that you're trying to solve? Are there strategic topics that you haven't really figured out how to fully incorporate into your business that this expansion of scope through nonprofit giving could help you to incorporate? We have a whole bunch of questions like that. And, and all of those, are intended mostly to help the business, the member, get clear on what they're trying to accomplish, but they also give us information that we can then match with work that we're doing with our nonprofits on the other side to really understand, each of their particular matrices of impact, kind of partnership style, their size, their scope, things like that. And then we're able to make some suggestions. And we have members of all different sizes. So the way that this plays out looks a little different if you're one of our biggest members with, who's giving, millions of dollars versus one of our smaller members. And we are very, committed to the fact that every, whether you're small or big, you're giving 1%. So you're equal partners, but just the amount of the giving changes the types of opportunities that are sort of available and meaningful. So we just scope our process accordingly. So it's a really robust program. And I would say for many of our members, it's one of the strongest value adds. Because again, back to what I was saying before, it's actually challenging in a good way, but challenging to figure out how to allocate your giving in a way that, really works for you and feels meaningful and, has value for your business.
And Kate, you mentioned that there's giving directly to those nonprofits, which is really clean as far as, the giving world, right? Everyone's, typically pretty scared about, is my money actually going to the mission? So that's terrific. Can you give us a sense? I know I had to ask this question. How does 1% for the Planet earn revenue?
Yeah, we have what I think is a great revenue model, having worked at other nonprofits, because it's really tied. We're all tied to the same sort of drivers. So our revenue comes from a small dues payment, which is part of the 1% of each member. And so that, as we grow, which is how we drive more impact, as we bring on members of all sizes, they pay a proportional dues amount. So, we are able to kind of grow with our member size. We're able to grow as we drive more impact, because more members, more revenue is more impact. That covers most of our operations. We also do fundraise for some additional dollars. And we find that to be very valuable. The kind of donors that we're looking for are builders, funders who are interested in building a system that can drive more giving, as opposed to buyers. We kind of use this builders, buyers language, buyers who are also awesome donors, who are focused more on like, I want to give this much money and protect this many acres. So they're essentially, a little bit more of a direct tie to immediate impact. Whereas donors to us, we are leveraging each dollar that comes to us to be about $12+ going out to environmental nonprofits through our model. So that's how we keep the lights on.
Got it. Thank you for explaining that. I'm sure there's a few people who may have wondered, and it gets a little tricky sometimes when you walk through it. I guess when you're thinking about 1% for the Planet, is it kind of accurate to say that, this is a great organization to kind of help me, number one, through this process, thanks to the advising. Number two, it's almost like an accountability buddy where I'm going to send you my financials so you see what 1% actually is, and you'll just sort of help me through this commitment that I've made to the Planet for my rent.
Yeah, I mean, I would say we're an accountability buddy for sure, and for individual members, that's especially true because for individuals, there's not the same kind of consumer requirement to have it fully vetted and be like credible in the same way, in the same brand relevant way that it is for businesses. For businesses, it's we're not just an accountability buddy, we're a certifying body, so we actually do look at the revenue documentation, we look at the giving documentation, we do the math, and to be a certified member and continue as a member year over year, you need to sort of hit those numbers every year. And that's really important because that's part of what is a real commitment. It's one that no matter what kind of a year you've had as a business, you live up to it, just like you pay your rent and you pay your staff. So that happens year over year. For individuals, again, we are more of that accountability buddy, helping you to be a strong giver and to live up to the commitment that you've made.
I love that phraseology, that certifying body. That makes sense for people who have letters after their name. Certifying bodies are very helpful in that regard. Well, Steve, you told us a little bit about what it's like to contact the nonprofit as a firm and get that great feeling and having conversations about their mission and what they're doing and how else you can help as a firm. Tell us and maybe other business owners or business principals who are watching or who will watch, what is the effect on your Bluestone Life clients when they hear that this is the commitment you've made through the certifying body, to be there for the planet?
Yeah, I think there's really three things on the client side. I mean, one is just how they find us. So people will search for 1% for the planet insurance, B Corp insurance. So part of it's that discovery. People will call and say, "Oh, I looked it up. I didn't know a life insurance company could be part of a B Corp or 1% or whatever it is." So that's kind of them coming in the door. And then I think the next part is kind of the deeper engagement with them. And so, as I mentioned, with our premiums with purpose, that part of that is our complimentary impact rider that you get an additional 1% to name to 1% for the planet nonprofits. And that helps us to connect the life insurance policy to an individual in a different way than what they would be used to seeing. So when we follow up with them, we're telling them a little bit about their policy, and we're also telling them something amazing about the nonprofit that they selected, what they're doing. And for some people, they're picking a nonprofit that they're a board member of, or they're a founder of. I mean, for example, the CEO of 1% for the Planet could become a client, and they know all kinds of things about their nonprofit.
Sure, yeah, it'd be pretty easy.
But for other people, they kind of say, "Oh, I don't know. What do you suggest?" I mean, kind of to the point of the question that came up, how do you pick a nonprofit? And we have some, of course, that we love, or I ask them, "Well, what's your area of interest?" And so with over close to $1 million now in impact rider beneficiaries, I think we've got something close to 50, a little over 50 nonprofits that people have selected. So it's fun to learn about those and then to talk about the customers. So it has that engagement portion. And then the third thing is just the very basic, the legitimacy of it. Like I said, people, are looking for that tile of B Corp or 1% on the website or the shop window. So again, it's just a nice way to say, yes, we do this, and as opposed to making it kind of ambiguous. Yeah, we're pretty good with the planet. We recycle, we give some money. This is a very specific thing that a certifying body checks up on us. So people know it's the real deal. So I think there's several ways that it helps us as a business to interact and engage with our clients, customers.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, the certifying body, the follow-up, the consultations, that's all got to be helpful from 1%. And then it sounds like you as a firm with your clients, you end up doing a teensy weensy bit of that too,
Yes.
helping them choose. That's terrific. So it's trickling down finally in the right way. Well, just a couple more questions before we end our Zoominar today. Kate, how can individuals get involved? You did mention that there is an individual component to this. So if there's someone watching or someone needs to figure out how they can be a part of this, what's it like to get involved with 1% for the planet?
Yeah, for individuals, we've tried to make it as simple as possible because really back to Lynn's question, I think individuals often feel that sense of kind of overwhelm and like also kind of, well, what can I do kind of with my small piece of the puzzle. And so what we try and do with our individual member program is make it really simple to get involved. And then you really become part of a community, as do our business members. But for individuals, we really have focused on that community element to help individuals feel supported by us and by other individuals in the process of sort of figuring out how do you know who to give to. And some of the things, so there's a very simple kind of join form that you fill out. You identify your 1%. So for individuals, we have a calculator that you can use to sort of use your income or whatever kind of increment of wealth you want to use, or you can just say more figuratively, this is my 1% that I'm committing to. And we've realized like, we're fine with that. The point is to make a commitment annually and to stick with it and to have some support in getting there. It's less important, and we're not going to check people's tax returns. So
You're not?
it's less important. We decided that fun job was something we would step away from. And that's been great because I think really that to us is the point, is that it's about selecting your goal and then having support in getting there. And so some of the things we've created to develop that support is, we do the individual advising along the lines of what we do for members, although it's obviously kind of a different matrix and calculus there. But we created a giving circle program. So individuals can join a giving circle, which is when you get together with a group of people. We've been doing them virtually, and you pool some resources, and we have a platform that we use to do that. And then you make a decision together to give your money to one entity. And it's a nice way for a group of donors to collectively give more than any one of them could alone to something that they've learned about and given to. And that's been really awesome and really fun. And then we also created that Planet Impact portfolio because we really wanted, I call it like our off the shelf model. So if you really want to do good and have it be super simple, we have this portfolio of nonprofits that we've pre-selected, and we're very transparent about why we chose the ones that we chose. And then you can make one donation, and we split it evenly between the nonprofits, and we just make those donations monthly. And that's been really successful and fun. And that's been a great option for a lot of people who are like, I just want to do something good for the planet. It's less important to me that I spend a lot of time choosing the particular one. I'd love to lean on your expertise. So that's been fun. That was a test, and it's done really well.
Oh, terrific. Well, the last question I have on here is just what's next, Kate? You mentioned you've gone international. You're not going, you've gone international. So now what's next for 1% for the planet?
Yeah, I love that question because I unknowingly kind of teed myself up for it. The Planet Impact Fund that I mentioned, we are now, or Planet Impact Portfolio is what it's called now. We are now going to be launching something that's more set up like a donor advised fund. So we've created a platform where donors, whether they're members or non-members, can make donations into a pooled fund, some of which will be invested in, sort of best in class ways, impact investments, and then some of which we will grant out through a portfolio model like I was just describing. And so we really can drive long-term giving through that investment side, and then, annual impact through the granting. Individuals above a certain threshold can also attach their own donor advised fund and access this really great investment platform. So, this for us creates a really great innovation to leverage environmental philanthropy, which is our expertise, to do even more impact. So we'll be launching that in the next couple of weeks as part of our 20th anniversary, which is this year. So we're pretty excited.
20th anniversary, of course. This is excellent. Yep. All right, well, let me go ahead and stop the share, and everyone brace for much larger faces. As I ask the final question here that I like to ask to all of our guests. And I'll start with Steve. Steve, this has been educational, I think, for a lot of people and a lot of business owner people. What would you say is the very next step that a person can take to participate, maybe in 1% for the planet, maybe in something else, but to make that step towards the environment?
Yeah, I think the philanthropic giving is great and important. We also talk a lot about the things you do with your money every day, and so just kind of be aware when you purchase products, not needing to buy anything that you wouldn't normally buy, like where you bank, where you insure, where you get your food from. Just kind of look for the businesses that are B Corps, 1% for the Planet members, and there are some businesses that are doing great things that aren't part of either of those networks, but they're still really wonderful businesses. So kind of that paying attention to where your actual dollars are going on a day in and day out basis, and certainly getting involved in 1% for the Planet. Kate knows the numbers better than I do for sure, but I think 2,500 new business members as of last year, and so that's actually one part I kind of didn't talk about with clients, is that the network itself is incredible. So in addition to people that know about 1% finding us, people that are actually in the 1% for the Planet network, it's a organization of 5,000 plus businesses and individuals and the nonprofits. So just watching that grow. So get involved with 1% for the Planet if you can, but also just kind of pay attention to where your money's going every day, every time you spend a dollar.
Steve Gruber, Bluestone Life, thank you very much. And thank you for help setting this up, by the way. You're the one that connected me to Kate, so thank you. And so, Kate, I'll ask you the same question, though I'll begin with something I pulled from the website, this concept that only 3% of all giving goes to the environment. I'm sure there is something that you and your founders would like to say about what people can do as at least a very first step.
Yeah, and I think the first step language is exactly what I would say, which is, you can hear like, oh, it's only 3%. There's so much we have to do. Or, climate change, there's so much we have to do. Or, there's a long list of things that feel like huge and overwhelming. And, again, as I was saying earlier in responding to Lynn, like it can be overwhelming and therefore paralyzing. And so I think the important thing is like, take some action, and Steve gave some great suggestions that you can incorporate. Make it as joyful as possible. Have it be fueled by something that you're connected to. That tree in the sidewalk outside your house, Jason, for you.
That's right. That was that connected.
But truly, like, and if you start today. And this is probably a good thing to say to people who are sort of focused on investing, because it's the same principle. Like, start today and then keep doing it. And if it's something that you can, do a little bit of every day, that adds up over time. Whereas if you bite off so much and you feel overwhelmed by what you've chosen, you're going to stop tomorrow. And then where will you be? So keep it small, keep it passionate, and it will grow and it will be meaningful and you'll be psyched.
You'll be psyched. Kate Williams, CEO of 1% for the Planet, and Steve Gruber, Director of Operations at Bluestone Life. Thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you.
And with that, we yield the balance of your week. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks.